video blog.
Hey there, this is Tim from Twice Circled, and welcome to episode 2 of the Big Pharma video blog. Now in this episode I'm going in depth into a new mechanic which I've added in just the last few weeks called the concentration mechanic. Now this mechanic offers massive scope for making much more complicated and intricate production lines at the higher levels of the cure tech tree, but still leaves plenty of opportunity for creating kind of low-level cures and kind of less valuable cures really easily without it being too complicated. So in today's episode I'm going to tell you what that's all about. So let's jump into a game. Now this is a kind of designed game setup which I've put together just for the purposes of demonstrating the latest mechanics, and so this isn't, don't think of this as a kind of typical gameplay experience. I'm going to be giving myself loads of free money. In fact, if you watch in the bottom left you can see my money going up like crazy because I'm cheating, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be rushing straight to a level 3 cure. You start off with level 1 cures available, and I'm going to rush straight up to a level 3, and you'll see that I'll be having to create quite complicated production lines to get to that point. But in a normal game you'd have to spend a lot longer kind of earning money with your lower level cures and then kind of researching and building up slowly. Okay, so what's this concentration mechanic that I keep going on about? Well, you'll notice the first change is that these ingredients now have a big percentage in the middle of them. We've got the shimmering bipoxy rock, which is at 48%, and the sticky cloud fruit steam at 52%. Now that percentage is the concentration of that ingredient, and it's in the very middle of the ingredient kind of diagram, and it's shared across the entire ingredient. It's shared across all 4 of these molecules that are attached to your ingredient. But what does it do? Well, if we hover over this molecule here, which is called the phospho-1 molecule, you'll see that it has this kind of bar, which I call the concentration bar, and you'll see that actually the effect of that molecule is dependent on the concentration. Now if you watch the last episode of the video blog, or if you play the game at EGX, this wasn't the case. You'll know that. Actually each one of these molecules just had a fixed effect which had either a positive or a negative value, but you couldn't change that without changing the entire molecule, whereas now, depending on this concentration, it can either be, you can see above the concentration of 55%, it's actually a negative side effect, it causes pins and needles. Between 30 and 55%, it's a painkiller, which is what it is currently, which is kind of good. And below 30%, it actually has no effect at all, so it's possible to kind of pull those molecules temporarily out of the equation altogether. Okay, so let's and let me show you a couple of other examples. So over here we've got this sticky cloud fruit steam, which actually has no effect at all at the moment. It's completely neutral at this 52%. But you can see that if we reload the percentage a little bit, the concentration percentage down to 45%, it would alleviate heartburn. And if we load it down to between 10 and 30%, it could be an antihistamine too. The last thing to mention is you'll see there's this reaction list at the bottom of this little tooltip, and each reaction now has a required concentration for it to take place, and this is what adds the complexity to the game. As well as the fact that you can now have side effects kind of creeping into your ingredients more easily because there's multiple effects attached to each molecule. But the main complexity comes from these reactions, which actually require you to get your concentration to a certain level before they can go off. Whereas before, there was no requirement. And you could actually, you could get to this level 3 cure I'm talking about, which I'm going to do in this episode, just by running it through 2 machines maybe. Whereas now, there's, well, you'll see, it's going to be a lot more complicated. I've got my work cut out. Okay, so I'm going to start by importing this ingredient, this painkiller, phospho-1. Now I could just sell this straight away, but like I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to rush up to the higher level cures. So to upgrade this to a phospho-2 molecule, we need to process it with an evaporator between the concentration percentages of 50 to 65%. So how do we change that concentration? Because we need to get it above 50. Well, every machine, well most machines, now have an effect on the concentration of the drug that goes in them. So they're now dual effect. So you'll see the evaporator, it increases concentration by 5%, but it also will set off this reaction here, when the concentration is between those two values. So now you've got two things you're going to have to be constantly worrying about. You've got like the concentration effect and the kind of reactive effect, if you like. So what we can do is I've worked this out, and if we put two evaporators one after another, the first one will increase the concentration by 5% and get it above 50, which is what we need it to be. And then the second one will set off that reaction and get us up to a concentration, get us up to phospho level 2. And then we'll have another little look at it and see what we can do with it. So let's see that go off. There's the reaction. Boom. Goes up to a phospho level 2. Now this has a completely different set of effects attached to it. And this is what makes it kind of exciting and cool. You'll see before it was actually a painkiller at the current percentage at 48%, whereas now it could be a anti-seizure medicine between 35 and 55%. It's a slightly different bound. So let's do that. Now what we've actually got to do is we've got to lower that concentration percentage back down to, if we can get it down to 53%, then it will be within those bounds, and then we can sell it for a profit. So let's do that. I'm going to have to start expanding. Good job I gave myself loads of money. Let's give ourselves a bit of space. I'm going to use a dissolver, which is kind of the opposite of an evaporator. So the dissolver decreases concentration by 5%. And then I'm going to run it through a pill maker, our old friend the pill maker, and then we're going to put it into an exporter. Start making some money, so that will start kind of ticking up in the background. In the meantime, let's take a little look at this second ingredient. Oh, I should mention, let me just go back for 1 second. You'll see here, if we hover over this, it controls seizures. This is really nice. Okay, so we've got a nice profit going to be coming in on this one. There's only one more reaction attached to this molecule, and that degrades to phospho 1 at this concentration. So you actually got to watch out. There's an extra kind of mechanic here, which is the degrading mechanic at certain concentrations, and you'll see that come into play a little bit later in the video. Okay, so let's import the sticky cloud fruit steam. Sticky cloud fruit steam, what the hell is that? Okay, so what do we have to work with? Well, the chloro 1 has no further reactions. It can only be an antihistamine. So let's ignore that for now. But we do have this one, which between the percentages of 45 to 60% can be upgraded to an amide 2 with the dissolver. So that's pretty good. It's pretty lucky that it's already in the percentage that we need to do that. Of course, it's not luck at all, because I've actually set up this whole set of ingredients so that I can demonstrate these mechanics to you. So normally, of course, these concentrations would be randomly generated along with the molecules attached to each ingredient. So there will be a certain amount of deduction at the beginning of the game. You know, where are the easy wins? Where are those quick upgrades you can do? Where is the sweet spot in the concentration, which allows the different molecules to have their positive effects lining up at the same time? Those are the sorts of questions you're going to have to be asking yourself, even at the very beginning of the game. Okay, so we've made this xenazone secretion, which has now got an amide 2 molecule attached to it. Pretty good, except what you'll notice as we go up the cure tech tree, the positive curative properties are higher value, but so are the negative side effects. And this is a really big advantage of this new system, because in the old system all of the side effects were only at level 1, and so none of them had very high negative values, whereas this now we've got this kind of causes heart palpitations, which is really bad. And actually we've actually reduced the profit from -5 to -7. So this is really no good at all. What are we going to do? Well, we need to increase that concentration up to above 65%, but below 80%, and then that will make some medication which will lower your blood pressure, relieves hypertension. Sounds like a good thing. So how are we going to do that? Well, we could chain a dozen or so evaporators together, but that would be a very long-winded and very wasteful way of doing it in terms of the space in your factory, because we know it's expensive to expand your factory. But we can actually use the agglomerator, which is a higher level machine. You won't start off with the agglomerator, you'll have to research it, which costs more, has a higher processing cost, but it also increases the concentration by 4 times the amount, which means we can make a much more kind of efficient production line. So how much do we need? We needed to go up to 65. In fact, that would do it. Just one agglomerator will do the job. Perfect. There we go. It's just very nice. So that turns into, it's still the same molecule, remember, but it's at a different concentration, which means it's now relieving hypertension. So that's a nice little bit of profit. Not quite as good as our seizure medicine, because we've got this negative side effect attached, but let's turn that into a pill anyway. Why not? Where should we go? I think what we'll do is we'll reuse this exporter here. We'll put a T-junction here, because an exporter can actually get rid of one pill every single turn, and these only have a processing time of 2, well, they have a higher processing time, double as much, and so actually we can maximise the efficiency of this exporter by putting a T-junction there. Let's just watch that. I love watching the T-junctions go. It's probably my favourite bit of the game. Oh, so pretty. Alright then, so what else can we do? Well, I said I was going to get all the way up to a level 3 cure in this video. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's have a little look at this one. The amide 2 has a single reaction attached to it, which means it upgrades to amide 3 when it's catalyzed by phospho 2 and processed by the agglomerator between the concentrations of 50 and 100%. We've already got the right concentration, but we need that catalyst, that phospho 2. Now, catalyzed, if you like, is a new keyword I'm adding. It means that it means that another molecule has to be present to allow this reaction to go off. So you'll start to see these more and more at the higher level cures. And what it actually means is we need this phospho 2 that we created earlier as part of this molecule before we're going to be able to get up to that next level. So this is going to require us to do a little bit of production line tweaking. So I'm going to split this off. As I've said before, the pill printers have a processing time of 2, so where possible, you kind of only want to split them off and kind of maximise your usage of the drug that you're feeding into them, because this dissolver is doing nothing now; it's just sitting there because it can actually create 1 per turn, whereas the printer can only take 1. I'm gonna have to sacrifice that pill printer because it was getting in the way, and then we're going to build a multi-mixer to add our 2 molecules, our 2 drugs together to create something a bit more powerful. Is there any way that I can? No. Okay, we're going to have to get rid of that lovely thing we did earlier, and then I'm still keen to keep selling our anti-hypertension medicine, so I'm just going to split this off here with another T-junction. Oh no, God, I need to create a pill printer, don't I? I bet you're all shouting at the screen. Being really wasteful with money here. Oh God, this is terrible. This is not a good layout, Tim. But luckily I've got a button which gives me free money, so... Okay, where were we? So we'll leave that to get going. So we're feeding, we split it up, and we've got half our xenazone steam going down to the pill printer and being sold as an anti-hypertension medicine, and we've got the other half going to this multi-mixer, which is adding it to our phospho 2 molecule to create this lovely little beast here, which has phospho 2, amide 2, and a chloro 1 attached. Now, it's still not worth any money, because heart palpitations aren't to be sniffed at. They're a really bad side effect, and we need to do something about that. Now, the whole point of putting these 2 together was to catalyse the reaction that was possible on the amide 2 molecule. So now that's all possible. We've got a concentration over 50%. We've got phospho 2 present. That means all we need to do now is run that through an agglomerator. I'm going to have to expand a little bit more. And then we can get to that level 3 cure. Yeah, let's just watch the animation. It comes in, spins off, prevents stroke, beautiful. Now, here's the problem. The agglomerator, as well as setting off that reaction, it still increases concentration by 20%. That is a passive effect, and that will always happen, regardless of what ingredient your processing. So when we have a look at this, the good news is we've landed just about 73%. We've landed in the perfect concentration region for our new amide-free molecule. It prevents stroke, which has a positive value of 150, which is great. We really got potential here to make a profitable drug. The problem is that phospho-2 from earlier, at this percentage, it blurs your vision. And remember, the higher the level the molecule, the worse the side effects. And that's actually got a negative 70, which is pretty bad. It's actually worse than the positive value of the seizure medicine, of the controlled seizures effect. So this isn't good, and it actually means that our potential profit of this this drug is actually worse than the things that we've been creating earlier. God, everything's got stuck, hasn't it? It should sort itself out when we keep going here. So what are we going to do about this? Well, you'll notice that above 55%, phospho-2 is blurs vision, and above 60%, chloro-1 is urinary retention side effect. But we need to be between 70 and 85% for our stroke medicine to be effective. So, we've got a problem here because we can't actually have this without these two side effects. So we've got a couple of options. One of the options, you'll see here that on this phospho-2 molecule, there's one reaction left, which is it degrades back to phospho-1 when it's at the concentration below 34%. Now, lower level molecules have less severe side effects, and so that would be one way of reducing the side effects. We could lower the concentration right down to that. Now, another option is actually we accept that we're going to have these two side effects, but we administer this product as a cream. Because, sorry, I did that very quickly. If we go to the cream, this is one of our, like the pill printer, it's another one of our finalizing machines. It converts the ingredient into a cream, which reduces the magnitude of negative effects by 50%. So yeah, we've got these side effects, but because it's a cream and it's on the outside of your body, the reactions aren't going to be so severe. So, it's not going to blur your vision or cause you to not be able to pee quite so bad, because it's just a cream you're rubbing on the outside of your body. Alright, so let's export that and see if that can increase our profit margins. Here comes our little tan coloured cream, and you'll see now that our profit's back up at 60 plus 65 because it's actually halving the negative effect of both of these. Now, just for the purpose of demonstration, I haven't done the maths. I'm not actually sure how effective it will be, but we could look at reducing the concentration down to less than 34% so we can degrade and get rid of that side effect. Now, let's try that. As always, let's split it off with a little T-junction. Okay. And basically, the higher the level of the machines, the more impactful they are in terms of changing the concentration. So these are the evaporator dissolver, plus minus 5%, agglomerator ionizer, plus minus 20%. Then you've got the autoclave and the cryogenic condenser. Now, the autoclave's new, and so is the ionizer. The autoclave halves the concentration. So you can tell that at this very high concentration that we're at constantly, that will have a bigger effect than, say, the ionizer, which just removes a flat 20%. So let's create one of those. Where's a good place for this? Let's have a little look. I should mention that these are work in progress graphics. These are very much first draft. None of the animations are in, so these will definitely, you can look forward to more fancy versions of the autoclave coming soon. So let's see what happens when we put that in there. Okay, so we've got it down to 36%. Oh, it's so close. We need to get it down another 2 percentage points. So we'll just use a little cheap dissolver to get it down to the percentage we need to, so that it degrades that phospho molecule. There we go, and that turns back into that. It's currently a painkiller, which is nice, but obviously we're more interested in this stroke medicine because that's worth 150. So we're going to try and get our percentage back up. We could double it by using a cryogenic condenser. which way round is best. Probably like that. Will doubling it be enough? Let's check my maths. It will go. It's at 31. Doubled to 62. We need to get to 70. We can use an agglomerator to increase it the final 20%. Now look, you can see how getting to a level 3 cure now takes a lot more than just 2 machines. It takes a lot more than that. And so you can see, you know, in even higher levels, you can imagine by adjusting the concentration levels that you need and which catalysts are required to get up to each level, you can see how you can really increase the kind of the complexity of the machines required. So now we've got it down to only a phospho 1, which is only a -20, nowhere near as bad as the -70 that we had earlier. It's still worth putting this through a creamer, I think. I think that's the best one. Let me have a little look. Combined value 105. Oh, combined value 55. Oh, you know what? It might be worth putting that into a syringe maker. And why not? Because I haven't shown you this one yet. Syringe maker is another type of finalizer, which increases the combined value by 40%. So it's really good on your high value cures, which have maybe cost you a lot in terms of processing costs, to really amplify that final selling price. And then once we turn that into a syringe, we can go on to sell it. I'm curious to see how good this is. Oh, I love this animation. How cool does that look? Squeezing it down into a syringe, and out it comes. Plus 61, it's not bad. It's got a really nice. The combined value is, you know, really quite a lot higher. But the problem is that processing cost is really killing us now. Having to use this many machines, the processing cost is now much more important than it used to be before the concentration mechanic. Here you've got this autoclave dissolver there, that's adding an extra 12, and then you're adding another 12 kind of, or another 16 going back up using the condenser, then the agglomerator. Syringe maker costs 26 to process. So you're going to have to be a lot more careful about which machines you use for where, and you could probably optimize this production line a lot further than I have, to decrease those processing costs and increase that profit. There'll also be research that you can undertake which will decrease the processing costs of various machines, and again, now that the processing costs are more important, I mean, look at that, that's over half the value of this drug. There's going to be a lot more value in researching those technologies. Okay, so that's what the concentration mechanic is all about. I hope you can see the scope for kind of a much cooler, more interesting game. And now I've got that done, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to start looking at some of the more macro, the kind of meta game, if you like, around the production line simulation. Things like I need to do the tabs for the cure tech tree and the research tree, and of course I keep talking about it. I did a blog piece about it just last week called Modeling Markets. I need to add that dynamic market simulation into the game, and then I think that's when the game's going to start getting really interesting. Okay, well, I'll just leave that running so you can kind of watch the pretty graphics. I'd like to finish off by answering some questions that I've had. So if you want to ask any questions, what I recommend is just if you go to my website at twicecircle.com, there'll be a link in the description for this video, and then leave a question in the comment section of this. There'll be a blog piece surrounding this video blog, episode 2. If you leave a question in that comment section, I will either respond to it with a comment, or I will save it up and respond to it in the next video blog. So here's the questions from last time. UFFE Sweden asked, and Scott both asked about patents. That's the thing that I've been asked about most recently. They asked about how the patent mechanic will work. So for those that aren't aware, you have patents in the pharmaceutical industry which allow you to protect your intellectual property. They allow you to protect your design for a drug, if you like. This is in real life, so that other people can't copy it after you spent however many thousands or millions of pounds even researching it. So others can't copy it and kind of steal it off you, basically. So the way that's going to work in this game is I think there'll either be a patenting machine, or there'll be a kind of patenting option attached to each ingredient. In fact, it won't be attached to the ingredient. Patents are applied to finished products, so you'd actually select the product itself, and maybe there'll be a little button up here. Click it, apply for patent. This will take a certain amount of time, and it will cost a certain amount of money, but once you get it, no one else will be able to sell that drug in that exact structure, and the structure is determined by which compounds are attached to it, and at this particular product type. And that's how patents work in real life, actually, is that they only apply to a single product type. So even if you got the patent for a pill, maybe a Mycalotox syringe, but you haven't got the patent to the Mycalotox pill, then someone else would be able to patent that and kind of get that off you. The other interesting thing about patents is that if you change the molecule structure just a little bit, then you can actually get around a patent and sell your drug anyway, or even apply for your own patent. And that's why I'm calling these molecules. You'll see these little designs which are kind of supposed to look like molecules, and they're actually different for each molecule. So for the amide 2 it looks like that. For the amide 1 it's a bit smaller. Here's the one for the phospho 2, and then here's the phospho 1, a little bit smaller. So all you have to do is actually switch one of those molecules, and that counts as a completely different drug, and so you can apply for a separate patent on it. And so there'll be a level of, how much do you want to protect yourself? Do you want to try and patent every single type of stroke medicine, or are you just going to patent the one that you're selling, which is the most profitable? And there'll be some really interesting macro decisions to make there. I think that'll be really interesting. Matt asked, is multiplayer planned? The short answer is no. Multiplayer would be awesome, but I'm a small studio. I'm with limited resources, and while I've got what I need to make to finish this game, don't worry about that. This game will be finished come May, and it will be a polished and fantastic game. Multiplayer is probably one step too far, but hey, who knows? Maybe there'll be a sequel if this game sells well enough. And a number of people have asked about AI competitors. Now, this is too big a topic for me to cover in just a kind of quick answer at the end of a video blog. So what I'll do is I will be writing a blog post about that in due course. Maybe not for a little bit, because we're still a little way away from that. I need to get the market simulation in before I've got a better idea how the AI competitors will work. But don't worry, I will be writing a blog piece about that in due course. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video blog, and you are excited to play the game. Like I say, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments page on the blog, on the website. And if you're interested in alpha or beta testing the game, which will start early next year, then do sign up to the development newsletter from the Twice Circled website. All right, well, thank you for watching. Goodbye.